There we go. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking time to attend the sixth episode or session of our Azure Chalk Talks. We're very honored today to have StratoZone. There's a lot of buzz about StratoZone. It's a great tool. I've been through a number of demos of this product. A lot of interest in the with our customers with this tool. And we have Carl Kashi, who is going to present an overview of how you can leverage this tool to get a handle on your cost for migrating to the cloud and actually begin that journey. So, Carl, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for giving us the opportunity to present. We're going to go through a few slides here to sort of set the backdrop for those who haven't seen a presentation before, and then jump into the actual StratoZone platform. Just going to get through the rest of the minutes we have. The platform itself, StratoZone, for those who are being introduced for the first time, is a purpose-built hybrid cloud journey platform. Everything from discovery of a customer's environment to automated processing of things like dependency mapping and application mapping, all the way through planning and road mapping into what a strategy should look like, whether it includes a combination of next-gen hardware, next-gen database plus cloud, all cloud. It doesn't matter what type of formula a customer wants to throw at it. The criteria is what's important as to the way they want to see their cloud consumption model built out. So for the most part, after many years of assimilating what customers are looking for from this type of a process, the items you're seeing on your screen really are what most customers are asking for today. That is, show me what's in my environment, not just an inventory, but a pretty decent advanced mapping down to performance requirements, what's talking to what. So, and the biggest question demand there is to make sure that discovery is not done at the cost of a lot of resource time at the customer, and that the discovery is not going to interrupt production operations. So very low footprint, low intrusion discovery is the need of the hour. And we'll walk through how StratoZone does that in a very efficient manner, sort of, very scalable across multiple data centers and so on and so forth. And the other big thing that a lot of customers are looking for is an actionable cloud assessment. So StratoZone is not an output and call me when you're ready to digest a lot of pages type of platform. It actually has so many different components to it. People ask us to see what an output looks like, and there's something for everybody, right? There's reports on every realm, from the technical stuff to the CXO level to the CFO's financial reporting. So the point there being that it's very actionable. It's a real-time platform. It can be operated on. You change your plan, the dollars change with it. You can throw out one scenario, come up with a different scenario. As your needs change, your data gets better. So it's an actual real-time platform, not a static output with a PDF or an Excel sheet that kind of delivers just a one-time view. So it is a continuous view that you can keep changing, and that's the big ask from a lot of customers. Everybody's been assessment, death by assessment at this point. This is a completely different approach to life. And the platform really gets you through all of the pieces you need. We define the platform in its entirety as a cloud decision framework with migration automation capabilities at the end of that. And when we say a cloud decision framework, we refer to pretty much everything you'll need to touch it. So not only the what goes where, what should stay private, what should go to my next gen, what should go into colo, what should go into hyperscale cloud, managed cloud. So we have multiple target planning capabilities with the customer telling us what they want to see, and it actually goes through and applies that logic to all of the inventory and assets. Does it very quickly. You can always do this on a spreadsheet with elbow grease, but it'll take forever. So the what goes where is the pretty obvious ones. What's my IaaS, PaaS, SaaS? What should get replatted, cloud native? What's staying private and public? But then there's a third dimension to that, which is the when. That is based on current investments, budgetary cycles, app life cycles, and it lays out the when dimension to it, and you now have the ability to look at like a 5-year, waterfall cascading roadmap to see what your world looks like 1, 2, 3, or 5 years out. So really powerful modeling capability. What if analysis? I'm shutting down a data center. Tell me where everything goes from there based on these criteria, right? And it'll actually parse that out for you. And it picks the best fit cloud products. It'll identify on an IaaS level. It actually matches to the machines that are available out in Azure in in the PAS world, we'll identify passable items, and we'll get into a little bit more detail on that. And the final thing most customers ask for are, this sounds great, but now you got to give me a predictable number on migrations. If not, the whole model goes out the door. Just going out there and getting time and materials and migration effort is not going to really help. So the platform actually orchestrates and lends itself to a predictable, low-cost migration environment that you can build that cost in before you decide to do whatever your plan may be, whether you're moving or not moving. But that is what impacts quite a bit of it. At a technical level, a lot of the things on the screen are what customers want. Some are all, right? Not necessarily everybody wants all of these, but you may want to go down deep dependency mapping, application mapping. You may want financial reporting that is truly cost justified based on existing infrastructure investments and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of these items you can pick, but most customers will go with the inventory and cloud fit analysis and dependency mapping. These are extremely automated to the point where it'll draw app bubbles inside of specific target environments, and you can work those into business services and things like that. So there's a lot of functionality there. We'll touch on some of that today. The biggest challenge that most people have is there's not one platform that does everything together and doesn't keep it together. And that's the big benefit from a time savings that StratoZone brings to the table. It's all kept together. It is not much you need to leave the platform for to get yourself through that journey. So the basic building blocks of the StratoZone platform are what you're seeing on your screen. Discover and analyze is an extremely scalable discovery platform, goes out, gets everything, pre-processes everything from your dependency maps, app maps, everything out there that can be pre-processed and is then staged and kept ready for you. So it does your cloud fit scoring as soon as the data starts showing up. It also has a plan and roadmap feature, which is now a very broad platform that lets you do different things. The plan and roadmap capabilities are whatever the customer wants it to be. So you may do app mapping in parallel with financial modeling. You may do roadmap development. You may do capacity planning, but it keeps everything together. So if you've got app bubbles, the pricing is reflected by app bubble. If you've got loose assets, the pricing is reflected by that. If you've got dependency groups, you can manipulate those into roadmaps. So there's a lot of things that happen in parallel with larger customer processes. So there are different teams working on different pieces in the plan and roadmap module, and then that leads to the automated migration once the customer's trigger ready and good to go. One of the key things here we like to point out is that the middle component here, when you look at a lot of tools out there, this cloud decision framework's right down the middle, and there's a lot of missing pieces that are not on the market today. So that's one of the things we want to point out, and that what that does is it avoids this disjointed process. The disjointed process inhibits consumption. We went through this years and years ago. The whole purpose StratoZone came together was exactly that. The fact that everything was handled as a separate project, and what happens there is that the customers don't benefit as much from cloud because you're only consuming a small portion of low-hanging fruit, and you're not getting the true ROI, right? You're straddling both sides of the fence. You're not really consuming what you should be consuming because you don't have clarity and visibility into all your assets. So as you move down the right of this chart at the bottom, the more complex the applications and the environment gets, the less clarity customers have into that environment, and so the less chance of it actually getting migrated or consuming cloud from those not so low-hanging fruit, right? So in the beginning part, everything is low-hanging. It's very easy to see what the benefit is, and you can move. But a material or holistic cloud assessment, a cloud planning function, this is an entire function that needs to be handled from beginning to end. So one quick thing here on how this works. The platform itself is a SaaS platform, and it has deep hooks into the data center through what we call StratoProbe, or what we call data collectors. So customers will identify to us how many locations they have, how many environments they have, data centers, domains, or however they want to see their data. And it's a quick 5-line form for each of these locations. You fill it up. Mostly it's got emails and names of sponsors and tech admins behind the firewall. Each person behind the firewall gets a link to a downloadable, uniquely numbered data collector, which is then installed on any one machine, and it hits all the other machines in the environment. Anything that's Windows, Linux, anything x86, and the process is agentless, so there's no agents to deploy. We don't sniff spam ports. We don't sniff routing tables. The process to install the actual application that starts the collection can be done even on a laptop, so you don't have to sit there and wait for provisioning times. And then the timeline you're seeing at the bottom is as much time as people will actually spend getting that collector started. You're getting either an IP range or you're doing an IP list, and that kicks off your collection, and that's the end of the effort from the customer's part. After that, it's all about planning and other functions that we do at a different level at the customer with customer personnel. So this is a quick wire diagram overview of how it works. How long you let the data collection run depends on what you're trying to do. You run it for 3, 5, 7 days. You can get really valuable conclusive assessment results in 2 days. And then you can let it run for 30 days if you're trying to do something like app mapping or dependency mapping, just so you capture all your relationships. Now, this maps to a very busy slide here, not meant for everybody to look at, but we just wanted to identify the fact that this is not meant to be just a tool. The tool maps into the different components of a hybrid cloud decision framework and planning journey that you'll need. So you can go in with a basic assessment, which essentially gives you some fundamental TCO ROI, what's cheaper in Azure, so on and so forth. And then you can get in the premium assessment, which is a whole planning function that goes with it. You get your hybrid modeling, your IaaS, PaaS, so on and so forth. And then you get all the other advanced services based on what the customer wants, and then ultimately concludes in migration planning and the migration motion. So the idea here is to not throw a very busy slide up on the screen, but the idea here is to know, and for customers to know, that we got all of the pieces covered that are necessary to get moving. So when you've covered it in the same framework and you're relying on the same data from the same platform, you significantly reduce your cost of getting the job done. So with that, I'll jump into the actual platform. I can take questions while I'm doing that. Just want to confirm that you can actually see my browser up on your screen.
It's loading right now, Carl.
Yeah. Okay. Were those slides keeping up with the speed at which I was speaking?
Yeah, they were for me. Okay. Yes. There we go.
Okay. For some reason, the browser goes a little slower, but well, just let me know if I'm not keeping up. So the platform itself, like I said, SaaS platform, very easy to use and work. We do it if we're doing part of the assessment. Customers can come in here, do their own poking around. It's not much you can break. And it's interactive, so everybody that's got permission access to that customer's data can come in and actually work in a collaborative manner. So analyze, plan, and migrate. There are some other modules in StratoZone that lend themselves to other functions, but for the purpose of today, we talked through analyze, plan, and migrate. You can kick off an assessment as easy as clicking the link down here at the bottom that says create new assessment, but we'll go into the analyze module and kind of walk through that. So this module, the analyze module, is 100% automatic, as we say. Other than issuing the the collector form, everything else happens automatically. So what an assessment is essentially whatever you want to call it. So I have a Demo Corp North America. Just to confirm, you can see my managed assessment screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
It's keeping up. Okay, perfect. So you can name it whatever you want. Like we said, the more granular you get with the locations, all the data reports up that way. It's pre-tagged, right? So I'll see everything by Chicago, Boston, New York, and Atlanta, and I'll see it by Demo Corp North America. And if you don't do that and you get a lot of assets coming in under just one location, you're going to have a hard time sorting through it later. And there's a lot of tools to help you parse and sort through it, but far better off kicking it off at a granular level here. Starting up an assessment is as simple as filling up this one form. You can go look at 3 different types of environments. One is customers' cloud environments. That is, if you're looking at an AWS or other environments out there. You can look at private assets discovery, which is basically the data centers and customer-owned assets. And then manual asset entry. If you've got MoveAir data, if you've got data that's already available from the customer that you want to get the financial modeling done on, you can actually load that. If you click that option, it'll give you 3 downloadable formatted sheets that you can input your data into and put it back in the system. That's got its limitations. The other 2 on the top are full-blown assessments. But this is all it takes to start an assessment. Like I said, each one at this granular level will take one of those forms, which is a 2-minute form. Once those get kicked off, data starts showing up in the cloud. You'll see here the whole reason of getting that granularity is so that I can actually get down here and sub-filter data and so on and so forth using the filters across the system. This is up purely a presentation module that's bringing everything back, pre-processing, keeping it here. I've got all the inventory coming in. You've got again, by assessment and location, things are profiled as they come in. This all happens in the first set of runs in 24 hours. So you can come look at this, pretty much the next morning, give it a 24 hours for good data to come in. And you'll see here that we've got all of the performance IOPS, all these things that are essentially backward-looking data. It's being used to price out the best fit, but it's just a summarization of thousands of records of rows coming into the system. So everything's in here: running services, installed applications, memory, CPU. We have already processed dependency maps. These are basic dependency maps, not to be confused with app mapping or advanced dependency mapping. But the idea here of processing dependency maps is that when customers tell us about their environments, they always miss a certain number of assets out there. And what we're doing here is what's called progressive discovery. Instead of crawling the network to begin with, you can, but most customers don't prefer that. You can go in here and you can run progressive discovery, where you find the first group of assets and then it tells you all of the stuff it's talking to that you didn't know about. And then with one click, you can put these back into the collector. So I'm just showing you an individual asset view here, but all the yellows are things that you missed, right? So you just set the function to say, go back and grab all those items. It'll go back and put them in the collectors and go get them. Inevitably, 99% of customers miss a part of the environment. So in this module also, by the way, 100% of this is happening automatically. In this module as well, you come in here and every asset's given a cloud fit score. This is a cloud readiness score that's very Gartner-esque. If you look down at the bottom right, it's meant to be on a machine score. We haven't taken any input. We're not trying to do hybrid modeling here. This is essentially at a machine and performance level, operating system, all those compatibility issues. The idea here is to identify things that are just out of the box, have a higher remediation versus low. So when a customer looks at the scoring, they might say, well, why does it get a higher or low? And they can just go in here and they can look at their own reasons, which is generated by the system, which is like your credit score. It says, here's why you got a high, medium, or low. Customers will want to customize those parameters and put different priorities on it, and this is a very simplistic form of doing it, but in this module we keep it kind of easy and simple. But they can change their priorities and change their criteria, and it'll actually change all the scoring that you see on the reports. So this module, like I said, is 100% automatic. There's nothing you need to do here. If you want to stop here on what's called a basic assessment, you can come in here and look at a whole bunch of stuff that's been pre-processed for you. So I can come in here and see, what's my for every location that I scan, what's my overall savings in Azure compared to a benchmark private data center. And we'll get a little bit more into this whole benchmark thing on the next module. I can come in here and see what are my passable items out in the customer's environment, right? So you've got a lot of these things going on. You can actually come in here and see what that total stack of bill of materials with cost is going to be in Azure, including the products and by location, by customer location, the products and what was selected and how that was estimated out in pricing. This is coming from our real-time pricing tables. In this module, you don't have the ability right now to apply discounts. We'll show you how that happens in the next module over. So again, analyze module meant to bring you to a certain point and stop. Everything here is available to you. All that cloud fit scoring, you want to give a copy to the customer, you come in here, you knock out a report, give it a name, put the customer's name in it, you select the file format. If they want it in Excel, PDF, you can decide what of the customer's locations get involved in this, in that report. Maybe some are not complete yet. And it just kicks off the report and emails it out, tells you when it's complete, when it's generated in your queue. So again, very easy module to use. Outside of kicking off the reports and kicking off the collector, everything else was done for you. And so now you go into the plan module. This is a little bit more involved. Until I say we're not automatic anymore, everything in here is still automatic, so we'll keep going through the automatic components. You'll see these preferred vendors, stack A, stack B. We'll get into that in just a second, but first thing the platform does here is it goes through and right sizes every asset. It optimizes it for each of the providers' different optimization strategies, and it optimizes it based on utilization and CPU benchmarking.
Carl, I think we lost audio.
Hey, Carl, you still there?
You might have hit mute. Let me do them real quick. Hey, Carl, you may be on mute. Not sure if you can hear us.
Hey, Peter, you there?
I am here.
Oh, could you ping him? I am him.
I am doing it,
Oh,
and
you
I've
are.
done it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just while we have this kind of portion, what about questions? We got a full Microsoft team here. Questions from the audience?
I'll go ahead and ask a question that might be in people's minds. Obviously in state and local, our customers have to deal with two clouds. They can go into commercial and/or Azure government. Does that make a difference for this tool?
It does not.
Great.
Nope, does not.
It looks like Amy's typing a question.
Does this provide a license assessment component, or is it purely for cloud usage? That is a great question. So the answer is it depends, but it's primarily for cloud usage. So again, as Carl May, as I think he went through in reference to IaaS, PaaS readiness, hybrid, those types of things, right? Network readiness, application dependency, flushes all that out, and we generally don't go through the license. For a SAM use. Yeah, absolutely. So when we talk about engagement models, so we have actually, Steve, you actually might be able to comment on this, but we have a unique relationship with the SLG team where the CSAs have the ability to give demonstrations, deploy the platform as well, and generate a lot of this. The Southeast team, where Steve is kind of taking the lead on that, so major kudos to you guys. But yeah, we can do it, or you can do it. So any of the objections would look like the classic one is, no way, agent security, not in my house kind of thing. We put all of those issues to bed. Generally, that's in the SLG space, that's going to jump up pretty quickly. We immediately put it to bed and address that. So once you kind of engage in that discussion, you're really good to go. We don't have any, we don't sniff ports. It's a straight WMI SSH handshake, if you will. It's really extremely straightforward. Hey, Carl, you on?
Yeah, I apologize. I just bombed everything on the internet, and something happened here, and it all just came back.
Yeah. Hey, by the way, I'll let you, don't jump on. So just, Amy, last one, typical duration, so we can do the analysis assessment in roughly 5 to 7 days. And then the turnaround is when you can get the customers rescheduled for the initial results, next steps. So, Carl, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Pete. Sorry, I apologize for that. I really have no idea what happened, but the whole thing went dark. But let me jump right back into it. So we talked about the analyze module. The plan module is, again, where we said we're getting a little bit more involved. In the plan module, the first thing that has to happen for anybody to tell any truth is to go right size what may be over-provisioned assets in the customer's environment, or maybe underutilized, overutilized. These things need to be optimized into a metered model type of setting, so you can actually get the details from what's required in order to price right. So the first thing that happens here is that the system goes through and it right sizes the assets in under StratoSpec, and I'm waiting for this to load here. I don't know what's going on with that. Yep, everything's blazing again. Sorry. So again, under the plan module, we were talking through the fact that you have a whole process that specs out the boxes and right sizes everything, and the whole point of that process is to go through with every asset, every build group, every roadmap wave, everything that has underlying assets, the platform goes through and automatically right-sizes everything. So you'll see here the SSD tier has been picked because the IOPS hit a certain threshold instead of magnetic. The licensing strategy knows what to do with Windows in Azure versus taking it to other providers. All of this stuff is done by default. It's automated here. You can change the sizing defaults, plan for growth, plan for elasticity, change your licensing strategy. So let's say the customer does not own the licenses. They're from an IBM or somebody else, and they're trying to exit a managed service and go into Azure. So you can change all these things, and it has a direct impact on sizing. On sizing and on pricing. So very informative. It walks you through examples of how to do things if you want to come and change it. Most customers will leave that as a default. But at the end of the day, for every one of these areas, the customer's assets have been right-sized. And these are all available now for you to go look at from a cost perspective. I'm going to pull up that same build group or application, and you'll see here that you can now come and look at pricing in real time. So a couple of things to explain here. Private data center, that's an out-of-the-box benchmark data center, certified, qualifies for pretty much a matchup against any of the online calculators. The whole idea here is it's been taken from a pie-in-the-sky calculator idea into a very granularized proprietary T-shirt sizing model that goes across granular sizing and performance measures, so it gives you a much better apples-to-apples comparison. So that's a private data center. If you don't like the private data center, the customer says, hey, it's in the basement, I don't pay power and cooling, I want real costs, you can customize it and make a customer data center, which is the item that's over to the right of it. You can make 10 customer data centers, and it's a very simple process. It lets you address every single thing that goes on with data center costing. I usually don't pull this up, but just so you can see, you can manipulate anything you want. You can create multiple regions. So in SLG, you have central IT that might be costing you one thing on a chargeback or not chargeback, and you may have your own data center areas as a customer, and so you can put these into the different columns. And so you can get pretty creative with getting the costing to be very accurate to the customer's actual costs, right? Stack A and Stack B, looking at these generic names. So if as a customer you want to look at, is a hyperconverged Nutanix stack or, HP stack going to be cheaper than going to Azure, you can actually take the bill of materials for the quote from the vendor, and you can put it in here on the left. It says add cost center, put a logo on it, and it'll show up as let's say Dell EMC or whoever it is. And you can compare that now to the benchmark private, the customer's private, Azure, and you can have 5 different products modeled in if the customer is looking at a true hybrid cloud strategy. Now, a lot of things going on here. This is purely the pricing component of it. You can see here the discount's been applied to Azure pricing. We're actually picking the product from Azure that matches best. It's an add or better performance guarantee because it's actually comparing performance and CPU benchmarks and things like that. And you've got your ability to then go look at how the thing bought all your stuff for you. You've got your included storage plus supplemental. You can look at the pricing detail for every box to see what that is. So this is an IaaS view. A lot of you are probably wondering about a PaaS view and about an application replat view. Those are layers you build on top of this. In the beginning of the journey, you've got to get your baseline from an IaaS perspective, because if the customer does not have the budget to start replatforming or even going PaaS, then IaaS may be the quickest way to get to cloud. So especially if they've got a compelling reason, data center shutdown, hardware end of life, so on and so forth. So again, multiple options to compare pricing. You actually can go and put in all the other stuff you need from Azure. You can pick your region. You can pick all of the things they need, express route. You can build in your migration cost here. If it's going to a managed provider, you can put the managed costs for the environment. And what it'll do is you take that and you stripe it across the environment that you're planning to move, and then your middle box here, which is your TCO, will obviously become greater than your compute cost, which is on the left box. I haven't applied it here, but generally you can build out all the goodies they want from the Azure Marketplace, everything from a networking perspective, load balancing, firewalls, and then you would come and stripe that across 1, 2, 3, or more groups here, and you'd get your actual TCO all-in cost of being in Azure. So this is a lot going on with cost modeling here. You can get pretty detailed, but again, you can apply your discounts for the customer level. You've got a whole bunch of other things in here I won't get in for today's session, but the simpler point being that At the end of this cycle, you've got an actual cost comparison that you can pull up. Same thing you saw in the prior module, just a little more ability to manipulate it. But for every location, every application, you can actually come in here and say, okay, this is what it costs me a private data center. If you want to change that and pick a different stack for your baseline, you can do that as well, or you can compare it to stack A and stack B. At the end of that cycle, it will actually put everything in a comparison across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different stacks, and you'll start to see your cost differentials there, right? So again, ignore my data here; it's coming out of my lab. But the whole point is you've got financial comparisons at the tips of your fingers. Now, just so you know, I came all the way here. This is also done automatically for me, other than picking the vendors I want to see. So I'm all the way to here automatically. I have not put in any input. You can now start building up on top of this, and a whole bunch of other automatic stuff. I've got all your IaaS, high and mediums here, what can be passed out across the environment. Remember, what you saw in the prior module was just a snapshot of exactly these pieces. And, more detailed cloud readiness, high remediation, low remediation. Then a very important component, what's called target analysis. Target analysis essentially is the ability for a customer to go over a large number of assets, put some rules in there and says, okay, anything that require X compliance and 3 nines, for example, stays in my private data center. I already built an environment that's certified for Y compliance. That goes to that environment. Everything else can go to Azure. So you'll see there's a bunch of targets here. These are all randomly picked targets that I put in for my needs. So I told the system, leave all my 2003 on my legacy. I'm going to remediate those into cloud. I'm going to replat, right? I said if they meet this criteria and the requirement is managed, it goes to a managed Azure provider. And anything else, by the way, that can't, there's 19 AS400s in my environment, they go to Colo. And everything else can go to naked Azure, for example. So you've got target capacity of making up any kinds of targets you want to do, and you're probably wondering how the system knows what to do. Well, back on the Strata spec, and this is the first time the customer actually gets involved, in that same build group where we right-size all the assets, you actually can now start putting in the requirements that the customer needs using templates. So how many nines does that application need or that group need? If this is a development server or dev test servers, they don't need many nines. What's the HA? DR is a distributed HA. A lot of that going on, especially when there's an outage. With the AWS outage, there's a lot of requests for, can you have distributed HA? What are the services you need to go with it, right? If you go all the way up to app management, app configuration, you'll start to drive this more and more towards the target of managed Azure. Same thing with performance monitoring, things like that. Each of these boxes actually means something up and down the stack. They're just not randomly assembled. And then what are your compliance requirements, right? This also drives the target because you might say, I've got a template here for anything that's FedRAMP and not Fed, a bad example, but I've got anything here that you might say is HIPAA plus 3 nines, and that needs to go to my private new stack that I'm buying because I've already certified it for it. So any combination of this thing can be turned into a template, right? And then you'll see here that the target type for these is an entire list of things I put in for myself. This is just an override field here I'm using, but it kind of demonstrates the list. Internal ITAS, internal legacy. So target mapping is a global function that you can use with quite a significant number of assets in a day or two of collecting data and putting in input on what those are with templates. So you can say the entire environment needs at least 2 nines and this compliance. Once you do that, your targets start to fall out. So this is a little more advanced functionality. This is not the 3 to 5 day approach for larger customers. This is where you actually have to have input. You have to sit down and talk to folks about what those requirements are, or it's portalized. They can do it themselves as well. So another key feature here is road mapping, a very powerful feature. The goal at the end of the cycle is to leave the customer with a roadmap. A roadmap is anything you want to call it. So I got a Chicago Go Dark, and I got my cloud migration roadmap, and underneath every roadmap is waves. Waves have timing, dollars, and justification to them, right? So a wave can be anything you want to make it. I'm going to edit a wave here, so starting a new one. But you can call a wave anything you want to call it. This is called my dev server wave. I can call it Get Me Off 2003. I can say this is all my database modernization wave. It doesn't matter what you throw at it. So I make up a name for the wave. I've got all my business drivers. I've got a budget for the wave. I've got $1 million for cloud next year. You can come at it from any different direction. This is a dev type wave. This is my DR wave. And then what you do is you go in here and you can pick from all of the 2,000 criteria that we have, the data points that we have across the system. Show me all of my 2003 that's over 5 years old, that has IIS versions X, Y, and Z on it, and by the way, has less than 20 gig of storage. That could be your first wave. And then you might look at it and say, there's too many in that first wave. It goes outside my budget for next year. So by the way, show me everything that's got 20 gig or less of storage and has average CPU utilization of 80% or more. Anything you want to throw at it, right? So you can sub-filter here. I can say, show me everything that's physical, right? And has IIS on it. So any ideas you want to throw at it, you can. And then what you do is you then apply your filters, and it'll drag from across the organization everything that is qualified for that wave, whether it be in application groups, individual assets. It doesn't matter. Everything is game. It'll pull everything else in. All these filters are based on data that's coming out of the customer's actual environment. So you're not getting just random data here. And so when I hit that filter, you see it pulled all the assets in to make a wave. The idea behind this is to have a wave-based roadmap that has timelines, dollars, and justification that can then be presented across the organization. And the exact criteria you used for your justification is presented with every wave. There's level of effort that goes with it. There's dollars. There's timeline. So here's your timeline. Mr. Customer, you said that this is what you wanted to see. Here's your waves. Each one, what's in them. What are the operating systems? What criteria you use, what your justification is, so on and so forth. So this is the culmination of all your work, right? As you start finishing up different groups, you put them into waves. Notice here there's a trash can on every line. You can throw the wave away and put it back together. I can do a 1,000 server wave in under 45 minutes. And that is having given the customer 2 days to think about how they want to see their motions come together. And then this is, by the way, reported up to either you can pull this separately as a separate report, you can combine it with other reports. But that's the whole end of the planning function, is to ultimately get here. Now, you don't have to wait till the end. You can put waves together starting on day 3, because if you notice the filtering capability, very simple for me to identify low-hanging fruit. So show me everything that has this criteria and has low dependencies. There's your first wave. By the way, they're not considered an application bubble, so everything that's loose. Or find me every application bubble that has less than 10 servers, right? So very easy to put these quick identifying waves together while you're waiting on the more complex stuff to get processed. And a couple of things that, other than that, from a technical perspective, a lot of folks want to see this. It does some really sophisticated dependency mapping, depending on how far the customer wants to go. Dependency and app mapping is a pretty powerful feature. The whole idea here is that it's an algorithmic automated process that's doing all the heavy lifting on a dependency map, IP cleansing, cleaning out noise from the traffic, so on and so forth. So this is a map that basically shows you what's going on. There's a lot of unknown servers. I haven't scanned them. It's important to make sure you get them all. But the idea here is that it's told me that in the group Boston, this is what my bubbles look like. These are obviously applications. For some reason, these two are talking to that guy. This is a common server that's talking to all of them. Now, you have to identify these. If you've scanned them, you know what they are. For example, here, I know that this is a SQL server, or that's a dev box. Here's a SQL server that's tying all of these together, right? Or at least these two bubbles together. And I have to account for these dependencies, because when you go migrate, you can actually use this to account for dependencies to de-risk your migration process. It's a big problem customers run into. They don't do it now, and then they find out they had to spend a whole month and a half doing it later when they're doing their migrations. So you can take this whole set of bubbles, and with one click, you can add the workloads to an application, and you have an application drawing tool and so on and so forth, but I won't get into that. I will stop here and kind of go into questions and see how much time we have left. But the next step from here, by the way, is the migrate module, which I won't go through it, but we'll just kind of look at the tabs on top. But the migrate module basically allows you to go through the motions of scheduling your assets, putting them into move groups, getting them into the next steps, so on and so forth. And that's what the migration module actually does from the perspective of getting you organized and orchestrated. So migrations, you can see on top, setup, move groups, pre-flight, in-flight, schedule, and status. This is the standard out-of-the-box functionality that most customers go through. If a customer gets more sophisticated, we build custom migration factories. They're not cheap, but if you've got 2,000 something assets and above, maybe 1,500 and above, you could request different components, firewall rule change capability, things like that go into the migration process. But this is migration orchestration that allows a best practice workflow to get organized and get to the window and get lifted and shifted. When we lift and shift into Azure, we use ASR. If there's need for other stuff, we have our own underlying replication as well. I will stop here. I apologize for the different disruptions that kept happening as we went through.
Hey, Carl, great job. There are three questions that I see in the IM window. Amy was asking about the price, and then Kevin was asking about, I'm assuming since you use ASR that VMware images are in the mix.
Correct. And if you have a situation where so if there's a situation where there's some type of limitation, or like ASR doesn't have it doesn't cover a couple of versions of Linux, we have our own in-OS byte level replication that we can use to overcome some of those. So we just do a mix and match based on what the customer needs. And then there's also the remediation function that happens if it's 2003. Do they want to try to create an image, or do they want to remediate before they move? All of that can be covered as part of the process as well.
Okay, and what's the price per VM?
So it's the assessment that you see. I'm going to go back to that screen real quick. So if a customer wants to keep it and just license the tool, then it's a per VM per month cost. It depends on the volume of the VMs. That's typically not how we approach it on the first run. You typically go in with either a basic assessment or a premium assessment. And if we're delivering the assessment, there's no cost for the tool. And the partner ecosystem is coming on board now to where if they've got a white label agreement with us, there's no cost for the tool when they deliver the assessment. If a customer wants to keep the platform going forward, that's a per workload per month subscription. Goes anywhere as low as $1.50 to $22, depending on what they're trying to get included in it and what the volume is.
Got it. And one topic that I think might be of interest here is the redaction. I don't know if you got into that, but I thought that was a nice feature, especially when the security folks are involved.
Yeah. So when you go look at the platform itself under assessments, I'll pull one up here. Two things happen, right? So I'm going to pull the Chicago one up here just so you can see what happens here. So you give this assessment a name. This is not stuff you have to do. They can do this at the console level, but you have a data security level that you want to pick. So if a customer says, I don't want my IP addresses going to the cloud, you'll pick level 2. You don't want your IP addresses and your workload names going to the cloud, you pick level 3. You can still do every single thing the platform does, except if you want to just go and identify and say which workload is that, you'll have to go back to your cheat sheet that's left inside the customer's environment. That's left on the collector machine. So there's a little extra work if you decide to obfuscate everything. But generally, IP is at the most where people go. And then the process for security as well, as we engage with the customer, we have a security white paper that goes out that shows them every field we collect and every data point we pull. We send out 2 versions of it. One version is missing the appendix with the field names, and that is given to the customer under NDA. So it's a pretty quick process of getting that done. But that's only if it's requested. If it's not, usually once we've explained the process and we tell them we're using WMI and SSH and we're pretty much collecting machine data, usually customers are pretty happy with it. I think I've said this on different calls, and I started tracking this. It's probably like 19, 20 months now that we've been doing it, and we have yet to have anybody complain from a data perspective of, hey, you're collecting stuff that I really don't want to see in the cloud. IP address, workload name, the only possibilities of things that can tie anything together. So you can actually obfuscate those on the way out by just selecting it here. They have a lot more control on the console when they get it. I don't usually get into the console side, but when they download that application, they get a huge amount of selections there. So they can go to inspect mode, which is it won't transmit till they inspect it and say it's good to go. So they actually get exposure to the XML file that's underneath. And they can look at every field that's contained in it. So if they're still not comfortable, it's raw data, it's there. You can look at it, and then you can say, okay, now transmit on schedule. So, you can catch it the first time. So there's a lot of functionality in that console that the customer sees. It's so rare for us to work on that console because that goes to the customer by email that typically I don't think I've touched it in about a year. So they get all this you're seeing here and additional functionality to control security and data and things like that.
Right. Okay, any other questions for Carl?
And if you're looking at the basic and the premium assessment that's on your screen, if you let us know customer size, there's different pricing tiers for those. And those can be, either SIF BIFT halfway or customer paid and or a third type of mindset that we've been going into a lot of these assessments. But the basic is pretty easy just to knock out and run off.
Awesome. Well, once again, great presentation. Really appreciate the time for Carl and Peter. I love this tool. Any other questions for Carl or Peter? All right, going once, going twice. Once again, thank you, everybody. Another plug here. This call's been recorded. I'm going to post it up on the YouTube channel. So if you have folks that you think might be interested, you'll be able to forward that on. And once again, want to thank StratoZone for presenting today. Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks, everybody.